At some point, we're going to have to choose to follow God for ourselves. We can't expect people to force us to pursue God or force us to go to church. It is something that we have to choose for ourselves because this is our life and it's our relationship with Him. So He wants us to pursue Him. He doesn't want us to be forced into loving Him. He wants us to genuinely love Him, unconditionally love Him, no matter what we're going through in life. And I know growing up in the church, my mom used to make us go when I was younger until we got to like around 18 years of age. Me and my brother, she started allowing us to choose. So she would wake us up and say, yo, I'm going to church. Are you guys coming with me? So she would always propose that question to allow us to choose because we have to choose Him. She can't force us to go because when you force people to go, that's when they start resenting God. They start resenting the church. So she did it the correct way. She allowed us to choose, and it got to a point where we were choosing to go because we wanted to, because we wanted that relationship with God. But even though I was choosing to go to church, I was still living in a sinful world. I was still doing sinful things in this world. I was still doing drugs. I was still doing crime. I was still doing the things that I shouldn't have been doing. So I hadn't fully changed yet. I hadn't fully transformed myself yet, which means I hadn't fully really chose God yet. It wasn't until I was in a storm where I had lost my job, I was in a failed relationship, I had gotten into a car accident. It wasn't until then I really started pursuing God because I became so dependent on Him. I didn't have anybody else. In that time in my life, I felt like I wasn't in control. It was one of the few times in my life where I really felt out of control, where I couldn't control the direction of my life. And I needed Him. I needed Him to fix things. I needed Him to help me get through this storm. And that's what He typically does. He throws us in storms so we can become dependent on Him again, and He can show us His power, which in the end increases our faith. So in the middle of that storm, I was just focused on the Word. I was learning everything I could. I was trying to become a lot more wise spiritually because I wanted to understand the spiritual world and the power that comes from the spiritual world. And through that, I wanted to work on my relationship with Christ. I wanted to become stronger in my faith. I wanted to really have that ability to count on Him, to trust in Him, because in times in the past, I trusted Him, but when things got difficult, I maybe started to doubt. I maybe started to forget how He's came through in other times of my life. So I really wanted to give my all to Him. I really wanted to choose Him. This is the time where I actually really chose to follow Christ. I really chose to study the Word. I really chose to get myself involved at the church, to worship, to fall in love with the music, to really try to transform myself from within. And through learning about Christ and studying Christ, I started to become more like Him. I started to become more loving. I started to become more peaceful. A lot more happiness started to come from within because I just had this overall feeling of gratitude within me, of just having this thanks of having life and being blessed and having the friends and family that I have in my life. So through that storm, He was transforming me. And through that storm, I came out better than when I went in. I came out with a job where I was making almost double what I was making before. I came out with a luxury car, way better than the car I had before. And just personally, I was the happiest I ever been. I was in love with myself. I was in love with who I was and who I was becoming. So through storms, we get greatness. Through storms, we get the best version of ourselves. So we need to change the way that we look at these storms and look at these negative situations because it's always for good. God always puts us in those situations for good, but we have to change how we look at these situations. We have to look at them from a positive lens. We can't look at them as being something negative. We have to change the way that we look at storms, because if we focus on the storm being beneficial to us, then it will be. You'll get what you need out of it. All you got to do is ask God, what do you want me to learn in this, so that I can come out of this ahead. I can come out of this a better man than I was before. And because I had that mentality, my life was better on the opposite end of that storm. But none of that happens if I didn't make the decision to choose God, if I didn't make the decision to choose to follow him, to give my life to him. None of those things happen. I don't get this new and improved self. I don't become more like Christ if I don't choose to follow him, if I don't choose to give my life to him. And when you do that, he'll bless you. He'll show you how strong he is. He'll show you his power, which in the end increases your faith. We have to understand that God is always in our corner. It reminds me of Jeremiah 17:7. Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord. And the unique thing about that verse is trust. The word trust. Trust is different from faith. Faith doesn't have any requirements to have it. So I can have faith in somebody and not necessarily have to trust them. I can have faith that my team is going to win the game, but doesn't mean that I trust my team to win the game. Trust speaks to somebody's character. God is righteousness, and God is always working for our benefit. So I trust him. I trust my life with him. It's more than faith. Trust grows you spiritually. When you grow in your trust for God, it enhances your faith. So the more you trust, the more faith you grow. So I'm working always to trust God more, to be able to give it to him. Because to have faith in somebody, I don't need to be reliant upon them. Trusting, I do. If I give God my life, I have to trust him with it. I have to believe that he's going to do good with it, that he's always going to be working for my benefit. So trusting is something we should always be working on, because it increases our faith at the end of the day. So I'm always focusing on trusting him. How can I trust him more? Any situation that he puts me through, I'm learning, okay, I know I can trust him with this because he pulled me through the last time. The last time I went through something similar, I got through it. So it does nothing but increase my trust for him. It allows me to lay down my life more for him. It allows me to give control to him, because our ego wants us to have control. It doesn't want to give control. It's one of the hardest things we can do is submit to God. So the more you trust him, the more you submit to him. And the more you submit to him and see him work in your life, the more faith you grow. So it all comes back to choosing God. We have to choose him. We can't passively be Christians. We can't be lukewarm in our fellowship. We have to either be all in or not do it at all, not be in at all. So are you going to choose him is the question. Are you going to choose this life is the question. Are you going to give your life to him is the question. That's a question that we all have to answer at some point. But I thank you guys for checking out this video. I'm going to have more content on the way per usual. I'll catch you guys in the next one. I'm out.